I have been using Macbook Air M1 2020 for more than a year by this time, and I just wanted to share a review with you guys so that you can decide whether to buy a Macbook Air M1 2020 in 2024. So moving forward, let us start with the price. The Macbook Air M1 2020 is priced at 1 lakh for common people and 90k for students through student discount. In case if you are a student, you get a 10% discount on their MacBook and you get it for 90,000 rupees in India. If you are someone who don't want to buy a laptop for 90,000 rupees, just skip this video and move forward because don't waste your time. But for those who are saying, let us start with the processor. So this MacBook has an M1 processor. So what is the best part of this is that Apple now makes the software, the hardware and the processor, so all the three are integrated so well that it gives you high performance. So Apple don't necessarily speak about numbers, as in the case of Intel, like Intel i9 12th gen, Apple don't speak about numbers and they just say it's an M1 processor, and that speaks for everything. So coming to the design of this laptop, there's nothing to worry about the design. Apple's design is minimalistic, aesthetic, sleek, slim and portable. This is such a lightweight laptop so that you can carry it like a notebook with you wherever you go without need to worry about the weight of this laptop, because it is so thin, so lightweight and so portable that you can just fold it and keep it in your bag and travel wherever you want around the world. Now I really want to speak about the thermal performance of this laptop. So this laptop MacBook Air M1 doesn't have a fan, and it is quite interesting because it doesn't even produce any noise. It is silent. I have been using this laptop for more than a year and I use this for multiple tasks like video editing, graphic designing, but I've never seen this laptop becoming heat. Even if I open and use 30 tabs on Chrome, it doesn't even come close to getting heat. But I don't use this laptop for any heavy purposes, but in case if you are someone who wants to do heavy video editing or like heavy tasks such as gaming, I would recommend you to move to higher versions of MacBook, because this cannot support gaming and all those heavy tasks, because this is designed to be the best for normal use cases. And since I am a student, I mostly use it for normal purposes. But if you are someone who is continuously doing heavy tasks, I will recommend you to move to other options of MacBook or else switch to Windows, because at 90k or 100k you can get Windows laptop that can handle heavy tasking. So moving forward, let us speak about the keyboard design. The keyboard of this MacBook is like so good. I've been using this keyboard for more than a year by this time. I don't use an external keyboard, and till date it has not given me any issues and it just works like a charm. Since I'm staying in my hostel, I've also used the keyboards of my friends' laptops such as Lenovo, Acer, Dell, etc. But none of the laptops has a keyboard like this MacBook does. So we can't leave the trackpad after speaking about the keyboard. The trackpad of this MacBook Air M1 is the best I have ever seen so far. As I have mentioned earlier, after using multiple laptops of my friends, I've never seen a laptop with the trackpad quite equivalent to the MacBook's trackpad. The MacBook's trackpad is so smooth, you feel that your fingers just glides on this MacBook's trackpad and it just tempts you to work more and more. So moving forward, let us speak about the important part. What is the battery life of this MacBook Air M1? The MacBook Air M1 2020's battery life is supposed to be 18 hours, but in my case, initially it was around 12 to 15 hours, but after using it for more than a year, currently it is about like 8 to 10 hours, but it is also pretty good. No other laptop will give you such a long battery life because the chip of this MacBook is so efficient in reducing the battery usage, and as you all know, the battery life reduces as the years passes, and that's the reason why my MacBook's battery life reduced to 8 to 10 hours compared to the initial performance of 12 to 15 hours. Speaking about the battery life, we need to also speak about the display. The display of this MacBook is high resolution retina display with a resolution of 2560 into 1600, and this display has around 400 nits of brightness, and almost 95% of people will not face an issue with this 400 nits of brightness, but you will face issue if you are someone who is working under bright sunlight. If you are someone who is sitting in a beach or sitting in public places under bright sunlight and working, you will be facing issues because the MacBook Pro versions come with the 500 nits of brightness, but this has 400 nits of brightness. But around 95% of people will not face an issue with this, and especially if you're a student, you will never face an issue with this because we all work indoor. And the display size of this MacBook is 13.3 inch, which is quite small, and during your initial days you might have some eye strain, but over a long time you'll get familiar with this. And now we are coming into the important part, the ports which this laptop has. So this laptop MacBook Air M1 2020 has two C-type ports and one headphone jack, and that is the main problem of this MacBook. You don't have a USB port, you don't have a SD card port, you don't have anything else. you just have a 2C type port and one headphone jack. And if you want to use anything else other than this, and if you are a student, you will be required to use an Ethernet port, and you need to buy a converter. You need to either buy a converter or else you can buy a C hub for this MacBook so that you can use multiple ports at the same time. During the initial days of using this laptop, what problems I faced was I was not able to insert a pen drive into this laptop because both the ports are C type and I need to buy a converter to actually insert a pen drive. Let us speak about the microphone and camera of this MacBook. The camera quality is quite good in this MacBook for whatever they give. They are giving a 720p camera, and what it basically does is it uses some algorithm inside it to actually make you look nicer. The engineering part of this MacBook's camera basically does it, and you need not worry about it, and that's why 720p doesn't look like 720p. It looks as if it is of much higher resolution. And in the microphone terms, it just works the way it needs to work. For example, let me give you an example audio recorded through this MacBook. This is how it looks when I speak through the MacBook's microphone. So please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also like this video. This is how it feels if you use a microphone of a MacBook Air M1. Now we are jumping into the main part, the storage of this MacBook Air M1. So this MacBook which I have is of 8GB of RAM and 256GB of SSD storage, which is the basic version which they give. But 95% of people, especially if you're a student, this will not give you a problem unless and until you deal with something that has a heavy file size. For example, I deal with a lot of videos. Usually the videos I generate are around 1.5 to 2.5GB, and I really face issues with the SSD storage because having 256GB is quite enough, but I won't tell it is the best. But if you are able to afford a 500GB or 1TB, I would recommend you to go for it because having a bigger size SSD is quite good compared to a smaller one. And the 8GB of RAM, you will not face any issues. But I do want to mention that there are other laptops at the same price segment of 90k or 100k that will give you 16GB of RAM and 1TB, 2TB of storages. But it's completely in your hand if you want to buy a MacBook or something that will give you a Windows operating system with 16GB of RAM and 1TB of storage. So even though the SSD size is just 256GB, you can prefer to have an external SSD of 1TB where you can transfer all your files and just have those important files on your laptop and just keep using this laptop. And the last but not the least, which I wanted to discuss with you guys, is this laptop really worth for an engineering student? So I am basically a second year BTech student and I am doing electronics and communication engineering. So being an engineering student, does this MacBook really suit an engineering student's needs in India? The number of MacBook users in India, that too among students, is very low. So the software they recommend in our college for purposes like simulation are basically can be only used in Windows operating system and they can't be used in Mac OS. You will be facing this issue with some softwares, but what you can do is to run a virtual machine inside your MacBook, so that you can install Windows into it and then run those softwares, or else you can use some other software which is a relatable version of the one mentioned in your college to do all your homeworks and assignments. So we have discussed all the major points about this laptop, but the point I want to mention is that this MacBook, once you buy, will last for long. You can believe that this laptop will last for at least around 5 to 6 years. You need not worry about the performance. It will be working the same as it was in the first day. At this price segment, you can never get a better laptop than this MacBook Air M1 2020, because when you keep all these small negatives aside, this has so much positives that will give you enormous amount of benefits and productivity compared to other laptops at this price segment. So this is what I wanted to share with you all guys. So if you feel this video was helpful for you, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and don't forget to comment below whether you will be buying a MacBook.